Good evening, everyone. This is Professor Thompson with this week's Information Please message for you. Each week I'll try and give you a little information on either our learning goals or some key things I think you need to be aware of. So next week, starting tomorrow, we start week 2 of our class. So I thought we'd get started with just some things you might want to know. For example, our class change. So this week we'll talk about the new location. I'd like to ask for help and some volunteers for weekly experts, and I'll explain what that means. And some of you have asked a little bit about the amount of reading you're facing in graduate school. If you're comfortable with how to critically read and you feel good about how you're able to process written material, then this section of our weekly information is not for you and you can skip it. But if you'd like to, you can watch and see if there's anything you can learn. First thing I'll mention to you is you'll notice our classroom change. We are now in room 259. We're still on the Priory campus, but our classroom is in room 259. The next thing I wanted to talk a bit about with you is experts for this week, right there. I'm looking for 3 to 4 members of our learning community that have experience with team-based learning from DU. I'd like to have you briefly explain the process as you've experienced it, things that are involved, the strengths you see in the learning, and also I'd like you to offer your colleagues who may not have been part of a team-based learning environment some tips on how to prepare. This should probably only take 10 to 15 minutes of our learning time, and so I will ask you to email me. You all have my email, mthompson@dom.edu, or you can also send me a message through Canvas if you're willing to help me out. The next section of this brief presentation is for any of you that think you'd like some pointers on how to critically read in graduate school. If you're good with that, you can stop the presentation at this point. If you'd like to know a little bit more about critical reading, let's go on together. So why are we spending time talking about critical reading? Because you have found after 1 week of graduate school that your time is of essence if you're brand new to our program. If you're not brand new to the program, you really know how time is of the essence. So a few things that I'd like you to know when you're thinking about reading and utilizing your time the best that you can. First of all, make sure you identify what you're reading for. Are you reading for general content because it's about the history of social work and you have to start somewhere? Are you reading about a specific theme, like working with individuals or doing assessments? Does the assignment or the reading require that you gather data? How many graduate schools are in the area that teach medical social work, for example? Or are you searching for information for an assignment, so you're specifically writing about LGBT elders in nursing homes? All of those will frame the way you do your reading. The next step, once you identify what you're reading for, is we want you to think about, or my suggestion to you is to skim things quickly. Study how the document or the book is organized and what headings and illustrations are included. These are going to give you some key pieces of information on what you're about to read and help you focus in on critical information. After doing that, I would take some time, if I was doing this, to write 3 or 4 key ideas or main points right there in the margins of the book if you're keeping the book only, or in a notebook. I know everything is technology based, as you can see with this presentation, but there's some benefit to actually physically writing and the connection to the brain. We call that kinesthetic learning. If some of you are already a kinesthetic learner, you're probably one of the bigger note takers, but this can help people retain information. One last thing, or one last slide for us tonight. So consider asking yourself, what does this section mean? Or what is this chapter about? What's the main point I should take away? Or what are some key terms and content areas that were presented? Outline those either in your notes that you do in paper. I know some of you will type these or highlight them, and then look for connections, but also look for contrast in material, an either or something that looks like that they're butting up against each other. I hope you found this week's pointer helpful. Our information weekly we'll try and do weekly if we have some key information to present to you. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, you can always email me, and I will see you all in class tomorrow evening.